everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name's Mabel, this is Mabel Journals, and I'm so excited for today's video because we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in April. It was a pretty good reading month. I had, I think, 2 5 stars, multiple 4 stars, no 2 stars. So I think we're good this month. I think this month is definitely something I'm so excited to talk about. I'm gonna do my best to get through all of these books before the sun goes down because that is my lighting right now. I feel like the quality of my videos is better when I have sunlight versus like my artificial light. So let's try to get through these books as quick as possible. If you notice a change in the lighting, don't say anything, it's fine. As long as you can hear me, right? Let's just get started. This is the pile of all of the books that I read. And I can't wait to get started. I read some on my Kindle, I read some physically. We're just gonna talk about all of the books today and try to do this as quick as possible, like I said, before the sun goes down. So let's get started. Before we get started, I do have a few disclaimers I wanna get to. First, these are my opinions. I will always respect your own opinion about what you think about books. And so I expect mine to be accepted as well. We can obviously talk about our differences in opinion, like in a respectful manner in the comments. You know I love to talk to y'all in the comments. Second, if you've read a book, try not to give away any spoilers in the comments because in this video there's no spoilers. There never is. So please keep in mind, no spoilers in the comments. Third, there are certain books I'm not going to talk about, either because I disagree with the direction that the publishers are going in because it is hurting other communities, or I believe that the author is problematic. Either way, you will see all of the books that I read in my journal spread. Fourth, always check triggers, whether I say it or not, always check triggers for any book. And then fifth, it doesn't matter how many books you read, whether you read half a book, whether you read 50 books, you're a reader, I'm a reader, we're all readers. We can talk about books, we can enjoy our books, doesn't matter how many, doesn't matter how few or how much, we're all readers. In the same vein, it doesn't matter if you read the book physically, it doesn't matter if you read the book on your Kindle, and it definitely doesn't matter if you listen to your book because you're still a reader. So please keep that in mind as well. Without further ado, let's jump into these books. So the first book I read in the month of April was the last to a very beloved series. I actually went over the whole entire series in one video. If you haven't seen it yet, I will put it in the cards for you, but it is the last book in that series, or the last novella, I should say, and it is the Believe Me novella. It is absolutely and without a doubt my favorite dystopian YA. I think that the amount of themes, the amount of action, the amount of love, the creativity and the difference, like this whole series just blew me away. And when we're talking about Believe Me actually has a lot of just, you know, rebuilding, a lot of just showing you what the world now looks like and how things changed. I don't want to give too much away because obviously this is the last book in the series, so giving anything more than that would be a spoiler, but it is a very good book. My only qualm with it is I kind of wish there was multiple POVs, not just one specific one, but other than that, I really enjoyed it. I gave this one a 4 star. Next book I read is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I absolutely loved this one as well. I couldn't put it down. I really felt like Ali Hazelwood did such a phenomenal job of just writing, like implementing me into the story. Like I felt like I was in this book. I felt like I was like living in this book, and I just absolutely loved it. I picked this up primarily because I had read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Is my first book by her, and I really liked it. I felt like the writing was addicting, and it didn't feel like I was reading when I was reading. And very similar to this one, I mean, I felt like this one even more so than Bride, just because Bride was a paranormal romance, so there were some parts of it where I was just like, okay, you know, but I still enjoyed it and I loved those things. But this one seemed a lot more real, so it was obviously, you know, it's contemporary romance, so it's obviously harder to fall out of this world. And so I literally feel, I think I read this in like less than 24 hours or 48 hours. It was definitely a very short amount of time. It just didn't feel like I was reading. And in this book, we actually follow our main character. Her name is Olive, and she's in her 3rd year as a PhD student she's a PhD 3rd year candidate, and she goes out on a date with this guy that she doesn't really click with. But her best friend, An, does click with him, but of course Olive just dated him, so An's thinking, why would I date a guy you just dated? I would never do that to you. You know, so Olive is kind of making it her mission to pretend that she's dating another person or another guy so that An feels okay with dating this other guy. So she tells her friend, hey, like, I can't go out with you tonight because I'm actually going on a date with this guy. And so An happens to see her in the lab, and she's just like, sees her, but Olive immediately kisses whatever guy is near her so that An, you know, doesn't ask her any questions and sees that she's obviously dating and didn't lie to her. And who happens to be this mystery fellow that she just happened to kiss? A professor, technically a different department than her, technically the same department, but he's not her professor, so it's okay for them to be in a relationship, I guess. And so we have like this whole fake dating trope. There's partly a one bed scenario trope. There's a lot of little things that happen in this book that I was just like so excited for. And I feel like she gave us a little bit of everything in here. So I really enjoyed this, and I gave this a 4-star. I gave this a 4-star. I really liked it. Okay, next I'm gonna talk about my continuation with the Bridgerton series. I have been trying to finish the Bridgerton series, like the physical books, before the new season comes out. And that comes out, I think, May 9th or May 16th. So I think I'm like on track. Finished 2 books in the series. The book I read last month was To Sir Philip with Love. And I did not love that book. I did not like it. I did not enjoy it. I gave that a 2-star. I think it was the lowest book I've rated so far this year. I was a little hesitant to continue the series just because, you know, it just felt like we were going downhill. But I'm happy to say that I did enjoy these next 2 books I'm going to talk about. The first one is When He Was Wicked, and this one follows Francesca. This book is really hard to explain without giving away spoilers, but the point is we do have Francesca finding love. And she has found love before, but now she's finding love once again. I'm not gonna say why, I'm not gonna say who, I'm not gonna say where, but it's very unexpected and it's honestly super cute. There was some stuff on it that I just wasn't a huge fan about, and again, I won't talk about it because I don't wanna give spoilers, but I ended up giving this a 3. I still enjoyed it. I loved being in this world. I really enjoyed Francesca as a character. I didn't give this book any higher than a 3 because Francesca has always been isolated from her family for some reason. And so I didn't get as much of the family as I would have liked. Like I would have liked to hear more about Eloise, more on Daphne. And I feel like I only heard of them and not really heard from them, if that makes sense. So still enjoyed this one very much, but not my favorite. Gave this a 3-star. I stand by it still. Pretty good. Better than Eloise's story, hands down. So the next book is Hyacinth's story. I always have issues saying her name. Hyacinth's story, which is It's in His Kiss. Hyacinth's personality is very similar to Daphne and Eloise and Penelope combined, in my opinion. I feel like she's a little shy like Penelope, but very witty like Penelope. Eloise, she's very outspoken. And then Daphne, she has like the grace of Daphne. Flawless beauty of her, at least in my eyes, based on how I perceived her in this book. And so Hyacinth is just, you know how Penelope gets along really well with Lady Danbury? Well, if you didn't know that, she does. And so I feel like Hyacinth is like her best friend is Lady Danbury. They hang out all the time and they're always like, you know, talking about something. And so I absolutely loved that Lady Danbury was attempting to get Hyacinth to be interested in her grandson. And her grandson has issues with his father and kind of is trying to figure out what his history is and all of that, like where he came from and who he is and all of that. And so his great-grandmother or his grandmother, I don't remember who, but one of them left a diary, a journal for him. And he obviously isn't telling his father about this journal because it has secrets that he has to figure out. And so he opens the journal and realizes it's in Italian and needs someone to translate it for him. And so Hyacinth speaks a little Italian. So she has been translating it for them, and together they're just like getting to know each other, and that's kind of where it starts off. So I really enjoyed this one a lot more than the last two. I ended up giving this one a 3.5. And I didn't give it any higher because I felt like it was missing something. I don't know. It feels like it's missing something. I don't know if it's just like the historical time period that we're in that makes me feel like all of the men are just too misogynistic, which I'm sure that's probably part of it. But, you know, there's been other books like The Viscount and I felt like it wasn't as misogynistic because, I don't know, Kate had a little bit more flair. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. The point is, this is a 3.5. I enjoyed it. I'm enjoying the series, and I can't wait to finish it. The next book I read was actually given to me by Forever Publishing. So I am unbelievably grateful to them to allow me to read this book early. It is Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. I had the pleasure of reading her debut novel as well, which is Forget Me Not. And I enjoyed that one, but I enjoyed this one a lot more. So in this one, we follow our main character, Gwen. She is, I don't want to say a violin prodigy because she learned the violin at 12 years old. But if you know anything about instruments that are like violin and viola and the cello, you have to learn those at a very, very young age. And I'm not talking like 9 or 10. Like you have to learn at like 5 or sometimes even 4, like just to kind of understand it as a language as you're understanding your new languages. And so we follow Gwen, who started at 12 years old learning to play the violin, and she is something of kind of like a prodigy because she's just so good at it, and it kind of baffles everyone who hears her because they think she started at a young age when really she didn't. And so Gwen we start off at this wedding where she goes with one of her best friends, and she was hired to play the violin. Or so she thought. They ended up telling her, hey, can you play the cello instead? Because that's what the bride wants. And so she's just like, I don't know how to play the cello. I've never played it in my life, but I do need the money. So she's like, you know what? If you have a cello, I'll try it. And they find a cello, and she plays the cello. I'm not going to tell you how that went, but it did go not bad. I'm not going to tell you how it went specifically, but she does get the attention of Xander Thorne. Xander Thorne is part of Thorne and Roses, which is like this band that plays the cello and all this musical instruments and all of that. And so he's obviously famous, but he also plays for the Manhattan Pops, which Gwen also plays for. So she already knows him, but he didn't know of her. And so this is how they get to know each other, the fact that she's playing the cello for the first time. And it doesn't sound like it's her first time. What I love about this book so much, because I gave this a 5, is the way that Julie Soto wrote the music. Because you can't hear the music, but you can hear it. It's, you know what I mean? Like what's challenging about these kinds of novels is that the author can't write the music and you can understand that where you can hear it. Similarly, when you talk about food, like you can't taste the food, but the way that she wrote this music, it was very easy to like feel like you're listening to it. And it was also very similar to how you feel about love. So similar to how you hear music and understand music as its own language, and you know, cry when you hear something, even if it's not really like has any words in it, or you just feel emotions when you listen to music. That's the same way that she expressed the love that you feel in this book as well. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but the point is, it just blew me away, and I was just so I was just living for this book, and I'm so happy that it's out in the world now and that y'all can read it. Comes out July 16th. I heavily annotated this one. Clearly I loved it. I annotated all of them, but this one's very heavily annotated. And yeah, I absolutely recommend. The next book I read, I actually read on my Kindle, and it is The Art of Catching Feelings by Alicia Thompson. And I think it's my 3rd Alicia Thompson book. Yes, my 3rd. She also wrote Love in the Time of Serial Killers, and she also wrote With Love from Cold World. I enjoyed both of those. I enjoyed Cold World a little bit more than the other one, but I absolutely love her writing so much that when this one was available on NetGalley, I requested it and I got it. So thank you so much to Berkeley and NetGalley for allowing me to read this early. But basically we follow our main character. Her name's Daphne, and Daphne is recently divorced and very, very sad, and just trying to figure out like what her next steps in life are. You know, her job isn't going anywhere. She's just kind of like in limbo. And she goes to this baseball game where she was supposed to have gone with her ex-husband, because her brother and his wife actually work for like the promotions of the baseball team. Anyway, she goes to the game by herself, and she ends up, you know, enjoying herself. She gets, you know, she drinks a little, she's feeling herself, and she starts like talking and saying things. And since she doesn't know much about baseball, she's actually just heckling all of the players until she gets to a player named Chris. And she ends up shouting something out that triggers something in him, and he starts to cry. And this whole thing's televised. So she's obviously made to look terrible in this, and he's made to look like a little bit of like a crybaby, so to speak. And so she feels bad, so she messages him on Instagram, and she's just like, hey, like, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. She writes like this letter over and over again until she finally gets what she wants to say. And then he responds to her, and they're talking, and they're like actually connecting, and they're feeling things, and it's just a lot of like back and forth until Daphne realizes she never told him she was the heckler. So he has no idea who he's talking to, because her Instagram is not personal, meaning she only has like, I think it's like a book Instagram, like it just has like books that she enjoyed and all of that. And so he obviously doesn't know who she is. And, you know, they're at the point where it's just like, does it even matter? Should I even tell you who I am at this point? Because clearly, like, this is just going to bring you down. And he reveals some things to her as well. She reveals some things to him, but they never get to know each other. And so that's kind of where it starts off. And it gets really, really interesting because they obviously meet in other ways. And yeah, I'm not going to give anything more away, but I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was so good. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. So the next book I read actually finished off another series, which is Hookshot by Kennedy Ryan. This book actually ends the Hoop series, and it was an amazing ride. We start off with Longshot, and in the end of Longshot, we actually get introduced to the characters in this book, which is Keenan and Lotus. And Keenan and Lotus are like basically the opposite of like what all of our other characters have been. Like, Lotus has sworn off all men and all like intimate interactions with them, and Keenan is divorced and he's taking care of his daughter, so the last thing he wants is another woman in the picture. And so he and her find each other somehow, and the chemistry just draws them together, and that's basically where we start off. And there are a lot of situations that both of these characters, you know, in their past and in their future get into, and so I think that this is definitely trigger heavy, so I absolutely recommend that you look up the triggers for this one before you start. Honestly, look up the triggers if you start the series in general, because Longshot also has a lot of triggers, and Blockshot as well. I don't want to give too much away about this one because, again, since it is the end of the series, I don't want to give away any spoilers. But all three of them are basically standalones, I guess, but it's good to read them in the order that they're in because you will get a little bit spoiled if you don't. The first one, Longshot, follows August and Iris, and then the second one, Blockshot, follows Banner and Jared. This one, Hookshot, follows Keenan and Lotus, and you kind of hear about them throughout all of the books, and they show up in different places, but if you don't read it in that order, then you kind of get a little bit spoiled on certain things that happen. But this one, I think, is my favorite of all three of them. Longshot was my favorite before I read Hookshot, so kind of both of them are tied, but I ended up giving this one a 5-star. I think Kennedy Ryan does an amazing job of having characters feel so real that you as the reader, you feel like you know these characters so well that before you even, like if some situation happens, you already know how your characters are gonna act. Like there were certain things in here that happened and I was like, oh no, Lotus is not gonna like that. Or oh no, Keenan is gonna say this or say that. You know, like I already knew these characters, and that's a really hard thing to do. So I absolutely loved this whole series. I cannot wait to read other Kennedy Ryan books. I have a few others that I'm gonna get into. But yes, This one was great. I gave this a 5-star, but of course, like I said, look up triggers. The next book I read is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I honestly could not stop reading this. It's so messy and it's so chaotic that it's just like you can't put it down. Follow Daphne. Daphne is engaged to be married to Peter. They end up canceling the wedding because Peter decides that he is in love with his childhood best friend, Petra. And he discovers this when he goes to his bachelor party, you know, because they're about to get married. And so he goes to his bachelor party and Petra's his childhood best friend, so of course she's going, and they end up like revealing to each other that they have feelings for each other and that they want to pursue those feelings. And so Daphne's obviously just taken aback, like, what is going on here? Like, we are getting married soon. Like, I don't understand what you're saying. He tells her, you know, me and Petra are going to go on vacation and I'm going to leave you here to, you know, put your stuff away, and, you know, because the house is in his name, so she's being kicked out basically. And if you think that's messy, then Miles knocks on her door. Miles is Petra's ex-boyfriend and tells her, hey, is Petra here? And she's like, no, she's not, but do you have an extra room? So these two end up rooming together, and that's kind of like where it starts. You know, we get to know their family dynamics. We get to know, you know, the type of people that they are in relationships, outside of relationships. And we get a lot of Daphne's perspective more than anything, but it's just such a beautiful, well-written, banter with a little bit of spice type of novel. It's definitely a very Emily Henry-esque novel. I have read all of Emily Henry's books, and I would probably place this one between Beach Read and Book Lovers. Book Lovers and Happy Place are still my two top favorites, but this one's close. This one's very, very close. If you haven't seen my video of Emily Henry, I will put it up on the cards, but yeah, this one I think is very, very good. I really enjoyed it a lot. I've seen mixed reviews on this one, but for me, I think it's very point blank. I am addicted to Emily Henry's writing, and so even if it's not perfection, if I enjoy the banter, if I enjoy the storyline, if I think it's messy, which this one definitely was, I enjoyed it even more. So I had a good time with this book. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. I stand by that, and yeah. Okay, so that concludes all of the books that I read in the month of April. Luckily, you know, it was pretty quick. We could get through it. We still have the sun to our advantage. So without further ado, let's actually jump into my journal flip through just so you can take a look at all the spreads I created this month. And that concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed the journal flip through. I hope you enjoyed the summaries of all the books. If you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments without spoilers. If you haven't and you're interested, let me know in the comments as well. I would actually like y'all, if you stay till the very end of this video, to either leave me a baseball or a basketball or a football, depending on which one you prefer. I am more of like a baseball gal. I grew up watching baseball with my dad, so I'd probably put like a baseball, but as of lately I've actually watched more basketball than anything because of my husband, so maybe I'd put both. But put down in the comments which one you prefer, if it's a baseball or a basketball. That concludes this video. Thank you so much for staying till the very end. Follow me on my other socials, comment, like, and follow and subscribe to my channel, and yeah, I will see you all on the next one. Bye.